Okay, so I'm Dr. Mariann Hardey. I'm interested in, well, I'm a social scientist, but I also do some consultancy and commercial work, and I'm kind of the bridge between the academic side of things, the kind of more fluffy side of things in terms of personal rog writing, and something I write which is called A Guide for Proper Facebook Etiquette, and consultancy work, and all those kinds of different pies and puddings, as it were, to put my name to. Today I'm talking about Better Living 2.0. Hooked myself onto the Web 2.0 tag quite nicely there, I think. And essentially what I'm interested in is kind of the broadcast elements of personal information and how we connect each other to one another, different social networks, and the participatory aspects that some of the other speakers have been talking about today, and in particular, kind of the long tail effects of what's going to happen with that kind of information and social data. So, during this talk, I'm going to take us through from everything from what makes us 2.0 in terms of the conditions of being a social mediaholic, one of which you're looking at one right now, and right through into the long tail effect in terms of, well, what happens to this kind of social information? Should we be concerned about what happens to this social information? I would say yes, and the different incidences to do with privacy, data, and online surveillance. So, the conditions of a social mediaholic, where you might recognize aspects of yourself in this, I certainly do. Every day we get up and we log on to a multitude of different information portals and platforms and social networks. Why? Because information is pervasive and it's widespread, and we seek out these kinds of information because you want to connect to others, but also to direct and channel our own personal information about what we're doing. Exactly the reasons why some of you have been twittering today, just to indicate what it is that you're doing and what it is that someone else like me on the stage should be doing. If we're in the bar together later on talking and swapping business cards, I suppose we call this networking. On the web and through different social media and mediated spaces, we could call this a socially immersed lifestyle. Hence, forthwith, we live in real time. And in doing so, everything is much more immediate and of the moment. There's a speeding up of how we channel our personal information, how we channel our social networks. And for Malcolm Gladwell and his friends at O'Reilly Media, this is about the instantaneous nature of the software, connecting to you, connecting to me, connecting to that information, and broadcasting it in a way that provides at once everything in a compact form, whether through our mobile phones, a laptop, whatever. So in terms of our daily outlook, together I'm suggesting that our connections offer a new kind of social sensibility. And part of this new kind of social sensibility is lying at the centre of it ourselves in terms of individual accountability, but also always with others. So it's not about individualism, it's more about how we offer our information to other people in our social networks. And I think what's really important to stress with our utilization of these different kinds of technologies and social media is that in the background, humming away is almost a little black box, if you like, as kind of aggregating all these different datas. And we may think that we're used to being in these kinds of information pipelines. I've been using the internet myself since the 80s. I'm a classic Generation X person. I had a Sega Mega Drive. I was in those early chat rooms. I used MSN, whatever. And what the internet's very good at, and in particular what social media is very good at, is connecting us to other people. But essentially, these are always people who are going to be like us, if you will. They're also seeking connections. And so we're assumed that we're very good and adept information seekers, and we utilize a range of media from Google to LinkedIn to Delicious, Technorati, and social bookmarking. But these platforms, whilst diverse, are actually linking us to others who are kind of like us, whether they like us or not, if you see what I mean. So our networks may grow, but essentially our outlook remains the same. And as such, as much as we're information givers in terms of broadcasting what it is that we're up to, and I could be twittering right now that I'm talking at TEDx, we're also information borrowers from one another, and in doing so, information archivers as well. And we automatically self-sort this information. So you might take a Facebook message, for example, and mentally shoulder that to one side compared to how you look at things, for example, on LinkedIn, which could be to do with more formal and work-based networks. And I think it's important to make those kinds of distinctions because it's quite interesting in terms of the sophisticated level of social enterprise, if you like, that's going on there, and how we kind of box ourselves off. So in effect, where once we could establish that we were on or off, because we were the subject of slow modem dial-up, and we had to turn the technology on or off, today we're very much connected all the time, and we're never off, and it's hard to disconnect. And in fact, it's almost problematic if we disconnect. So I'm disconnected right now because I'm talking with you in real time directly, and I can't be twittering or doing whatever it is else I'm doing in terms of my social media. And I need to make clear that I'm unavailable. And if I don't make clear, again, that becomes problematic. Your network starts saying, where are you? What are you doing? And in effect, whether we like it or not, in some ways, we're always airing our laundry to others, whether it's dirty or not, in terms of what it is that we're doing, what it is that we might not be doing. So what lies at the heart of all this? Well, as I said before, I'm suggesting a new social sensibility behind this kind of openness in terms of our networks, but also what it is that we're doing all the time. So there's an etiquette around this, an etiquette 2.0 perhaps. And at the very center of that etiquette, in terms of social interaction, is the kinds of encounters that we come across. So we continue to pursue different encounters. We like them to appear as lightweight, casual, informal, no pressure. You know, I'll email that person, I'll get in touch with that person. There's a low barrier involvement as well, as much as the technology is ubiquitous and we can each of us pick it up and immediately use it. We don't need a large instruction manual to be able to get on with this kind of technology. And in doing so, we appear friendly to our friends. Why not? We're constantly updating aspects of ourselves and our personal information, and that's very attractive and almost seductive in terms of what it is that we're doing. So we're looking to build collaborative structures and constantly be a part of networks and participate. As a result, what we lead into is deeper network penetration, more involved sociability, if you will, and in doing so, perhaps as O'Reilly has just been led to suggest this week, is not so much a Web 2.0, but a Web squared. And the effect of that could be perhaps there's new social anxieties about missing out, about disconnecting, about how to withdraw from these kinds of spaces. Should we be withdrawing? Perhaps we should just completely immerse ourselves in this kind of technology all the time. I find myself sleeping with my mobile phone on silent, which seems to completely defeat the purpose of it, but I never turn it off. Why? I'm scared I'm going to miss out on something. I'm scared to disconnect. Who knows? But these are kind of new social anxieties that are bubbling to the surface. So there's kind of a social balancing that's going on here. And in terms of social balancing, we appear to modify our statuses spontaneously. It's always of the moment. Things are speeding up. Things are immediate. And this coincides with the application of perhaps new rules around the kinds of boundaries of what it is that we're doing. And what lies at the heart of that is how we're always with others and our anticipated recall, if you like, in terms of the reciprocated behavior that we're going to get from others. So if you send a message to someone else, you're thinking in the back of your head, oh, they're not going to ignore me, they're going to send one back. Otherwise, what would be the point of sending a message in the first place? If you're sending out a tweet, even if it's mundane enough to read, like mine did this morning, heading with the train, going to TEDx, I need a chai tea latte, I'm writing that not only for myself, just to address what it is I'm doing and I'm bored on the train, but also because I anticipate that other people are going to read it and in some way interact and participate with the content that I've posted. So we're constantly social balancing, and in effect, we're social balancing to enjoy successful interaction, to continue to participate with our networks, to ensure future interactions, if you will. So, being a social scientist, I like to think things through, as you do, and I got to thinking about, well, what are the long-tail effects, perhaps, of this kinds of social information? And can we, in effect, social media degrade? So, I have for some time now had a MySpace profile. I'm much more of a Facebook user, but there was a time before Facebook when MySpace was around. I can't log into that anymore, but that profile still exists. To all intents and purposes, that information is out there. Same my Yahoo account, 8 years old, out of date, can't remember the password, can't log in. It's still there, all that information is still there. And similarly with a Hotmail account. If you're as vain, perhaps as narcissistic as myself, and I'm sure you have Googled yourself, I Googled myself, there are many millions of results from Mariann Hardey, less for Mariann Hardey, but I'm channeling that now, and what does that tell you? Where is all this information coming from? I'm pervasive in terms of my social media use and application, but I'm certainly not that pervasive. I'm not, contributing to that amount of content. So what are the long tail effects of this, and what are the challenges that we're finding in terms of data surveillance and being a part of these kinds of networks? And so, will this kind of social information ever degrade? Probably never. It'll be out there forever. 10 years from now, do you really want that to happen? So I'm going to buzz through these next few slides because I want to get time for questions. So in essence, we're obliged to follow others in terms of mediated practices. So if you get a message from someone, you feel obliged to reciprocate, to return that message, because that's exactly what you would expect if you sent a message out. And daily life is measured by the amount of information that we send out, that we retrieve, that we archive, and how we interact and participate with each other. And so, in essence, our networks work to ensure our social integrity, if you will, our social integrity to be a part of that network, to prove that we're not dead, we're actually there, and we're buzzing away in the background, but also to ensure our future participation and future friends within that network. And perhaps open acknowledgement of those kinds of rules could have an obtrusive effect, if you will. So, therefore, at the very essence of my argument, I'm going to end on this point. It's the very encounters themselves that are kind of the most important process, the meat of the process in terms of social networking. And I'll leave it with you there.